The alert on my phone blinked again at 3:17 a.m. I froze. A notification from my banking app, something I never expected to see. My best friend Jenner had somehow accessed it, and the transactions didn't make sense. My heart raced as I tried to comprehend what I was looking at. Was she just checking for me, like she always claimed? Or was there something darker behind her smile? My name is Courtney Hale. I'm 41 years old, a wife, and someone who thought she could trust her closest friend. I never imagined that the person I confided in, the one I had shared secrets and fears with for 20 years, could cross boundaries like this. For years, I believed our friendship was sacred, a safe space. But now, my trust was shattered, replaced by a gnawing suspicion I couldn't ignore. I remembered the times Jenner had casually held my phone, teasing about how easy it was to guess my password. Back then, I laughed. Now, the same gestures felt sinister. I couldn't shake the image of her smirk, the one she wore when she knew something I didn't. And then it hit me, she had access all along, probably using it to watch my life unfold. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting. But a text popped up on my screen that froze me in place. Check again, there's more. My stomach dropped. That simple phrase carried a weight I couldn't explain. How much had she seen? How much had she taken from me without my knowledge? I glanced at Eric, my husband, sleeping peacefully beside me. He had no idea what was happening, or did he? A thought clawed at me. Had Jenna's access to my phone been innocent, or had she been watching us all along, knowing my doubts, knowing Eric's secrets? The room felt suffocating. Every sound, the ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, was amplified. I remembered moments of strange coincidences. A misplaced item, a conversation that didn't make sense, a laugh that seemed too forced. Were they really coincidences, or had Jenna been orchestrating these little disturbances to test me, to manipulate me? Fear and disbelief battled inside me. I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed the friendship, even if it revealed secrets about Eric I wasn't prepared for. My fingers trembled as I unlocked my phone again, diving deeper into the messages, the logs, the hidden apps. Each tap felt like peeling back a layer of a life I thought I understood. And then I found it, a folder, hidden in plain sight, that Jenner could never have denied. My hands shook, and a cold sweat ran down my back. Inside were screenshots of private conversations, financial details, and notes that suggested Jenner had been monitoring not just me, but Eric too. The realization hit like a thunderclap. This wasn't casual curiosity. It was betrayal, deep and calculated, hiding behind 2 decades of trust. I sank into the couch, clutching the phone. Questions swirled in my mind, relentless and brutal. Why? Why would she do this after all these years? Was Eric involved, or was he oblivious? And most terrifying of all, how long had she been planning this? That was the moment I realized everything I believed about friendship, trust, and loyalty had been a lie. And I was only just beginning to uncover the depth of it. The next morning, the sunlight filtered through the blinds, but I felt nothing but a cold weight in my chest. I watched Eric pour his coffee in the kitchen, humming softly as if nothing had changed. I forced a smile, pretending everything was normal, but my mind was spinning with questions I couldn't answer. How could someone I trusted for decades violate my privacy like this? And why did it feel like Eric already knew, even though he denied everything? Jenner called mid-morning, her cheerful voice grating on my nerves. Hey, Courtney. Want to grab lunch today? I've got so much to tell you. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the phone. Should I answer? Could I even face her after what I found? I agreed, trying to mask my unease. I needed to see her, to gauge her reaction, to see if the woman I called my best friend would slip, even slightly. As I drove to the cafe, memories of our friendship flooded back. Jenna had been there for every birthday, every crisis, every breakup. She had been my confidant, my rock, the one person I thought I could never doubt. But little things had started to feel off, comments about Eric that seemed too knowing, casual questions about my schedule, jokes that hinted at things I hadn't shared. At first, I brushed it off, convincing myself the paranoia was creeping in. But now, with the proof in my hand, I couldn't ignore it. At the cafe, Jenna waved me over, her smile bright, eyes gleaming with that familiar mischievous sparkle. I studied her closely, looking for cracks, hesitation, guilt. She didn't flinch, didn't stumble, didn't act out of place. But I noticed a subtle tension in the way she held her coffee, the slight pause before she answered a text. It was small, almost invisible, but my instincts screamed at me. Over salad and iced tea, we chatted about work, mutual friends, the trivial details of life. But every laugh felt hollow, every question loaded. I kept glancing at her phone when she wasn't looking, imagining the secrets it held. Was she watching me as much as I suspected? Were those innocuous texts actually coded messages, tests, or worse? Every smile she gave me now carried a shadow, every gesture a hidden meaning. When she finally leaned back, sighing, I forced a laugh. You always have the best stories, I said, but my voice was tight. Jenna's eyes met mine, just for a moment, and I thought I saw something flicker, a hesitation, a knowing glint. My stomach churned. That split-second glance told me our friendship had changed forever. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I left the cafe with more questions than answers, each mile home driving me deeper into doubt. How long had Jenna been crossing boundaries? How much did Eric know, if anything? And most terrifying, what would I uncover next? The veil of normalcy that had cloaked my life was lifting, and the truth I feared most was waiting just beyond the surface. The following week, I started noticing small, strange patterns in our interactions. Every time I left my phone unattended, Jenna seemed unusually eager to check in. Just making sure everything's okay. She'd say, her eyes flickering in a way that made my stomach twist. I wanted to brush it off, but the memory of the password and Eric's strange behavior lingered like a shadow. At a wine night with friends, I overheard Jenna laughing about something she shouldn't have known. Her comment about Eric was oddly specific, a detail I hadn't shared outside our home. My pulse quickened, and I excused myself, heart hammering. Could she have been watching us, listening, planning? The thought made me shiver. I tried to confront Eric gently. Do you think Jenna knows something she shouldn't? I asked, trying to sound casual. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. I don't know what you mean, Courtney. But the way his hand twitched when he reached for his glass betrayed him. I could feel the lie pressing in the air between us. The more I observed Jenna, the more questions arose. She seemed to know where I'd be, who I'd talk to, even when my schedule was private. I remembered times she'd laughed at a joke I hadn't told anyone, a memory I had once dismissed as coincidence. But now, with the seed of doubt planted firmly in my mind, everything seemed like evidence. Late one evening, I found myself staring at my phone logs. Jenna had logged in again while I was asleep, a pattern I hadn't noticed before. My fingers trembled as I traced the timestamps and messages. Every entry suggested she had access to my private life in ways I never imagined. It wasn't just curiosity. It felt like surveillance, a violation that cut deeper than any betrayal I'd ever known. By the weekend, my anxiety had reached a peak. I couldn't trust casual interactions, couldn't laugh without wondering what she was hiding, and couldn't talk to Eric without suspicion crawling under my skin. My best friend, the person I had confided in for 20 years, suddenly seemed like an enigma wrapped in deceit. And as I stared at her name on my screen, a single question consumed me. What was she planning, and how far had this gone? Every encounter now felt like a chess game, with Jenna always one move ahead. I noticed her gestures, her glances, the way she held herself just slightly differently when she thought I wasn't looking. The familiar comfort of our friendship had vanished, replaced by tension, mistrust, and a gnawing fear. The foundation of my life, the home I had built with Eric, the circle of friends I relied on, was cracking under the weight of secrets I couldn't fully see yet. By Monday, I knew I couldn't ignore what was happening anymore. I started keeping a log of every time Jenna touched my phone, asked about Eric, or brought up things she shouldn't know. Each entry made my chest tighten, my mind spinning with suspicion. I wanted to confront her directly, but part of me feared what I might uncover. I set my phone down with a small hidden camera running, something I had never imagined doing in my life. The thought made me feel guilty, paranoid, and angry all at once. Yet every instinct screamed that I had to know the truth before this friendship destroyed the trust in my marriage completely. The next morning, I watched the footage. Jenna's hand hovered over my phone, her eyes darting around as if checking for witnesses. She typed quickly, paused, then smiled at something on the screen. My stomach lurched. She wasn't just curious. She was actively invading my private life. Later, I tried to talk to Eric casually about my concerns. I feel like Jenna knows too much sometimes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He avoided my gaze again. Courtney, you're imagining things, he said. But the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. The lie hung heavy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was protecting her, or hiding something else entirely. By Wednesday, I had screenshots, timestamps, and enough evidence to make a file that chilled me to the bone. Each message, each subtle action, confirmed that Jenna had been crossing boundaries for months. The betrayal wasn't a one-time thing, it was a carefully orchestrated pattern, a breach of trust I had never imagined coming from someone I loved like a sister. I found myself replaying past conversations, remembering times she laughed at inside jokes I hadn't shared, or seemed to anticipate things I said only to Eric. Pieces fell together, forming a picture I didn't want to see. My heart ached at the thought that my best friend could manipulate me so subtly, so completely, while I remained oblivious. That night, I confronted her gently. Jenna, have you been using my phone? Checking my messages? My hands shook as I spoke. She laughed nervously, but I could see the sharp edge in her eyes, the way she weighed her words. Court, it's not what you think, she said, but her smirk told a different story. That was the moment I realized I was dealing with someone I could no longer trust, and that my life, my marriage, and my friendships were all in danger from this hidden web of deceit. The next few days felt like walking on a knife's edge. Every message, every glance, every casual remark from Jenna made me tense. I couldn't stop thinking about the footage I had seen, how she smiled at secrets she wasn't supposed to know, how Eric had avoided my eyes when I tried to speak about it. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it just curiosity, or something far worse? I decided to test her subtly. I left my phone unlocked on the kitchen counter while I stepped outside to water the plants. Just a few minutes later, I saw her shadow flicker across the window. My heart thumped as I checked the camera. I wasn't imagining it. She had taken the phone. My chest tightened as I watched her read through messages, laughing quietly to herself. The betrayal was no longer theoretical, it was tangible, undeniable, and it cut deeper than I had ever felt before. I confronted Eric again that evening, my voice trembling but firm. I know Jenner's been going through my phone. Why didn't you tell me? He ran a hand over his face, exasperated. Courtney, you're blowing this out of proportion. But the way he avoided looking at me told the truth. He knew more than he admitted. My stomach knotted as I realized the walls of my marriage were crumbling, and every person I trusted was part of the tension closing in around me. That night, I replayed every past moment. The offhand comments Jenner had made, Eric's distracted moods, the small inconsistencies I had brushed off before. Patterns emerged like cracks in a wall, each one widening the space between me and the life I thought I had. I couldn't trust my own judgment anymore. And worst of all, I had no one to turn to, not even the people I had loved most for decades. By the end of the week, I had started creating a private file of all the proof I could gather: screenshots, messages, camera clips. My hands shook every time I added something new. The more I documented, the clearer it became. This wasn't an accident, or curiosity gone too far. This was a deliberate, sustained violation of my trust, and it had been going on longer than I ever imagined. Every night, I lay awake wondering, could a friendship I had treasured for 20 years really be a lie? Could the man I married truly be complicit in this deception? And as the question swirled, I realized the truth was coming, and it was going to change everything. By Monday morning, I had resolved not to let fear control me. I spent the entire weekend piecing together the evidence, screenshots, and clips, organizing them meticulously. Each small detail felt like a hammer hitting my chest. Jenna knew my phone password, she accessed messages she had no right to, and Eric hadn't stopped her. The betrayal wasn't vague anymore, it had a shape, a texture, and it made my stomach turn every time I thought about it. I planned my approach carefully. I couldn't confront her blindly, not without proof I could rely on. So I set a small trap. Leaving my phone on the living room table again, this time with a dummy message I had crafted myself. I watched from the kitchen, heart pounding, waiting for her to show her hand. And of course, she did. A quiet laugh, the subtle tiptoe of her steps, she picked up the phone and opened the message. My pulse raced, anger and shock mingling into a tight knot I couldn't ignore. Later, I confronted her in the quiet of the afternoon, my voice steady but cold. Jenna, why are you reading my phone? Why do you feel entitled to my privacy? She froze, caught off guard, and a flicker of guilt crossed her face. I was just curious, she murmured. But I had the camera evidence, the messages, the proof of her deliberate intrusion. This wasn't curiosity. This was control. A violation of trust so deep it cut to the core of my friendships and my marriage. Eric's reaction was equally telling. He avoided my gaze, fidgeted, and muttered, "Courtney, it's not like that," but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. I realized then that this wasn't just Jenner's doing, it was a pattern they had maintained, carefully hiding the truth while pretending innocence. Every memory I had of shared laughter, confidences, and inside jokes now felt tainted. How could I have trusted them so blindly? That evening, I sat alone, reviewing every piece of proof again. Each screenshot, each clip, confirmed a cruel reality. My best friend had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Eric had been complicit, or at least complacent. The sense of safety I had taken for granted, the foundation of my life for the past 2 decades, was cracking. And as I stared at the final screenshot, I knew something had to change, soon. The next few days felt like a blur. Every glance at Eric made my stomach tighten. Every text from Jenna sent a chill down my spine. I knew I couldn't act impulsively, but I also couldn't sit idly by. I started recording conversations subtly, taking note of suspicious behavior, and piecing together a timeline of their secret interactions. The evidence was mounting, each new discovery a dagger to my sense of reality. One evening, I decided to confront Eric alone in the study. "I need to know the truth," I said firmly, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. "Have you been hiding things from me? Have you been letting her cross boundaries?" His eyes darted away, and a tension filled the room I couldn't ignore. "Courtney," he began, but I cut him off. "Don't lie. I've seen enough to know you're protecting her, not me." My hands shook, not from fear, but from rage and heartbreak entwined. I remembered a conversation with Jenna weeks earlier, her laughing a little too loudly while scrolling through her phone when I wasn't looking. At the time, I brushed it off as harmless, but now it was glaringly obvious. They had coordinated, hidden their actions behind innocent smiles, and manipulated the trust I had given so freely. Each revelation, no matter how small, added weight to the truth that my closest confidant had violated me. The breaking point came when I found a photo on Eric's laptop, one that confirmed what I had feared most. Jenna and Eric had been in places together, moments stolen under the guise of friendship and harmlessness. I felt my knees buckle, the room spinning as betrayal sank in fully. This wasn't a simple lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate, ongoing deception. My mind raced. What would I do next? How could I confront them without destroying everything permanently, yet make them face the truth they had tried so hard to hide? By the end of the night, I had all the evidence I needed. Screenshots, messages, photographs, and recordings. It was undeniable. I could feel my life tilting, the foundation shaking beneath me, but I also felt a surge of clarity. I knew the confrontation was coming, and with it, a reckoning that would change everything. I couldn't stop shaking as I opened the hidden folder on Eric's laptop. There they were, hundreds of photos, messages, and video clips. Jenna and Eric, together in cafes, parks, even vacation spots I thought I'd only been to with him. Each image, each timestamp, confirmed a story they had worked so hard to hide. My heart pounded, my chest ached, and yet a part of me had already known, felt it, but seeing it made it undeniable. I found emails between them discussing meetings and excuses, pretending to be casual friends while coordinating private moments. One email had a subject line that made my stomach drop. "Tonight, make sure she doesn't notice." It wasn't just emotional betrayal. They had planned it, calculated it. I couldn't believe someone I trusted so completely could be so deceitful. The most painful moment was discovering that Jenna had access to my phone all along. Every time she claimed to check a notification or borrow my device, she had been monitoring, knowing what I knew, what I suspected. I felt violated in a way I hadn't thought possible, my personal boundaries shredded, my sense of security obliterated. I confronted Jenna that night, my voice breaking. "Why? After 20 years, why would you do this?" She laughed nervously, as if it were some joke. "Courtney, you worry too much." "It's harmless," she said. But the text messages, the emails, the photos, they told a different story. The walls of my friendships and marriage were crumbling, and there was no turning back. I spent the night combing through every piece of evidence, my mind racing with the enormity of betrayal. Every small lie, every innocent action now revealed a pattern of manipulation, deception, and disregard for me as a friend and a wife. The revelation was complete. I finally saw the truth of who they were, and the shock left me trembling, unsure how I would face them next. The next morning, I couldn't face Eric without answers. I demanded he sit down and explain every message, every photo, every lie. He hesitated, then muttered something about old mistakes and misunderstandings, but I wasn't buying it anymore. My mind replayed every moment from the last months. The late-night texts, the sudden errands, Jenna's constant presence. It all clicked. I had suspected, but now the pieces formed a horrifying picture. They weren't just hiding a fling, they were orchestrating a betrayal that had been years in the making. I decided to check Jenna's social media, thinking maybe there were more clues. Hidden tagged photos, deleted comments, private messages saved in drafts. They had covered their tracks, but not perfectly. One message stuck out. Everything is going as planned. She trusts us completely. My hands shook as I realized how systematically I had been deceived. Every smile, every innocent conversation Jenna had with me had been part of her plan to monitor, manipulate, and control what I knew. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I had loved these people, trusted them with my life, with my marriage, with my secrets. And yet, they had betrayed me on a level I had never imagined possible. I felt anger, grief, and disbelief all at once. My home, my sanctuary, felt like a trap I had been blind to. I confronted Eric with the most damning piece of evidence. A series of voice notes, recorded by Jenna, describing me, my habits, my suspicions, all shared with him as if plotting a game. "How could you?" I whispered, tears streaming. He looked at me, finally realizing the depth of his deception. But it wasn't remorse in his eyes, it was fear. The truth had come crashing down, and now I had to decide what to do with it. By the end of the night, I had organized every shred of proof. Photos, messages, emails, notes, all lined up like pieces of a puzzle that revealed the full picture of betrayal. The magnitude of their manipulation left me dizzy. My world had been shattered, and there was no going back. I now knew exactly who they were, and the shocking clarity left me both terrified and determined. The following evening, I couldn't keep pretending. Eric sat across from me, trying to explain, to justify, but the words sounded hollow, like echoes in an empty room. I slammed my hand on the table. "I trusted you. I trusted both of you." My voice cracked. Rage, heartbreak, and disbelief collided inside me, leaving me trembling and furious. All those years of friendship, of marriage, of loyalty, they had been a lie. Jenna's face appeared in my mind again, smiling innocently at brunch last weekend, laughing at jokes I didn't find funny. And I realized how blind I had been. Every warning sign I'd brushed aside, every small suspicion I'd rationalized away, it was all true. Eric and Jenna had manipulated everything, feeding me a version of reality that didn't exist. I felt violated on a level that went beyond betrayal. It was the invasion of my life, my marriage, my private world. I couldn't let it continue. I grabbed my phone and started documenting everything. Screenshots, recordings, texts. Every little detail, every lie, every hidden action, nothing would be left unchecked. I had to protect myself and regain control. I would confront them, expose the truth, and reclaim my boundaries. The storm inside me burned hotter with every second I was done being silent, done being the victim. The first step was clear. I would demand answers from Jenna, the one who had crossed every line. I rehearsed in my mind how I would approach her, how I would hold her accountable. Fear, yes, but also clarity. For the first time since the discovery, I felt power returning to me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. By the end of the night, I had made a decision. No more excuses, no more denials. I was going to face them both and take control of the narrative of my life. The betrayal was real, the pain was real, but so was my determination. And in that moment, I realized something essential. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, I woke with a sense of grim determination. I reviewed everything I had collected, the messages, the screenshots, the videos, and my pulse raced. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin of the illusion I had been living. I realized I could no longer ignore the truth. Jenner had crossed every line, and Eric had been complicit, lying to me for years. I confronted Eric in the living room, my voice steady but icy. "I know everything," I said. His eyes widened, his lips parted, but no words came out. "Don't talk. Just listen," I continued. "I have proof. I know about your secret meetings, your texts, and everything you tried to hide. This ends now." His hands trembled, and I saw fear replace the arrogance he usually wore. Then came the hardest part. Reaching out to Jenner. I stared at her contact on my phone, fingers hovering, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down. For 20 years, she had been my closest friend, and now I saw her for what she really was. But this wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life and setting boundaries that could no longer be crossed. I rehearsed the confrontation in my head, each word, each demand. I imagined her shock, the excuses, the gaslighting. I would not fall for it. I had rehearsed my calm, my confidence, and my refusal to be manipulated again. Everything I had endured, every sleepless night, every pang of doubt, it had led to this moment. Finally, I felt a strange mix of fear and empowerment. Fear of the fallout, of losing what I thought I had, but empowerment in knowing I had the truth and the power to act. Today, I would set the record straight. Today, they would see that betrayal has consequences, and I would no longer be the victim. By mid-morning, I had made my plan. I knew I couldn't let things fester any longer. I started by changing all my passwords, locking every device, and securing our home network. Every step was a small reclaiming of power, a reminder that I was no longer defenseless. I took a deep breath and made a list: calls to lawyers, messages to friends who had witnessed Jenner's manipulations, and documentation of every proof I had collected. Eric tried to stop me, his voice pleading, but I didn't waver. "It's too late, Eric. You should have thought about the consequences before betraying me," I said. I could see panic spreading across his face, but I remained calm. I called Jenna next. Hearing her voice after so many years, knowing what she had done, was unbearable, yet I forced myself to speak clearly, documenting the conversation and recording the confessions she couldn't deny. I reached out to my closest friends and family, letting them know what had happened. Their support was immediate and unwavering, a reminder that I wasn't alone, that the people who truly mattered were on my side. I also contacted a lawyer to understand my rights regarding our shared finances and privacy violations. Every call, every message, every note I took was a step toward reclaiming my life from the chaos they had created. Then, finally, I told myself the hardest thing. It was time to confront the truth in front of both of them. I invited them into the living room, my evidence laid out, my phone recording every word. For the first time, I wasn't scared. I was steady, confident, and in control. The betrayal had been devastating, but it no longer had the power to define me. Today, I would make it clear that trust, once broken, could be rebuilt only on my terms. The room was silent, tense, every second stretching like an eternity. I took a deep breath and began. This ends now. Every lie, every betrayal, you both know why I'm here. The air in the living room felt lighter after the confrontation. Eric and Jenner had left, their faces pale, guilt written in every line. I sat down on the sofa, my body still trembling, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. I realized something profound. I had survived, I had uncovered the truth, and I had taken back control of my life. The betrayal had hurt me deeply, but it had also revealed my strength. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I spent more time with my friends and family who truly cared, reconnecting with people who had been my pillars of support all along. I set strict boundaries, no secret access to my phone, no uninvited interference, no crossing the line again. For the first time, I felt the power of self-respect, the quiet strength that comes from knowing you won't tolerate manipulation. I also took the time to reflect on my marriage. The trust that had been broken could never fully return, and that was okay. I learned to prioritize my own well-being, to value honesty above comfort, and to never ignore the small signs of betrayal again. Every message I sent, every action I took, was now intentional and aligned with my values. And then, one evening, as I looked around my home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The shadow of betrayal still lingered in my memory, but it no longer dictated my emotions. I was free to live, to love, and to trust cautiously, but fully on my own terms. I had survived the storm, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. The truth had been devastating, the loss bitter, but I had reclaimed my life. And as I closed the door on that chapter, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing could ever take away the strength I had discovered within myself.